Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. At this press conference, we will first hear from Utah Department of Public Safety Commissioner Bo Mason. Then we'll hear from the FBI Special Agent in Charge, Robert Bowles. We'll then hear from Utah Valley University Vice President Peterson, who's been in touch with President Jimenez. And then we'll hear from Governor Cox. I'll turn the time over to Commissioner Mason.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bo Mason, Commissioner for the Utah Department of Public Safety. Today at approximately 12:20 Mountain Standard Time, political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot at an event at the Utah Valley University. He was taken by private vehicle to Timpanogos Hospital, where he later passed.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
The Utah Department of Public Safety will be co-leading this criminal investigation to find this killer, along with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We are working in unison with the County Sheriff's Office, the local police department, and the University Police Department, all of which have been very cooperative and fully engaged in this process. Shortly after the shooting, we did have a suspect in custody, George Zinn. He was released from custody after we identified that he did not match the shooting suspect and was not an accurate person of interest. However, he has been booked into the county jail by Utah Valley University Police Department for obstruction of justice. We do still have an active investigation for the person of interest. This incident occurred with a large crowd around. There was one shot fired, one victim. While the suspect is at large, we believe this was a targeted attack towards one individual. This is a tragic moment in our state and in our country. As we heal, we encourage everyone who's struggling with news of the incident to call 988, our state mental health crisis line. In addition to that, our partners with the FBI will also be discussing other ways we can communicate through the public for tips and other information.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the FBI, we extend our sincerest condolences to the family and friends of Charlie Kirk. Our thoughts are also with the people who witnessed this traumatic event. We know that what you experienced was very difficult. Our thoughts are with you as well. As soon as we heard about the shooting, special agents and personnel from the Salt Lake Field Office responded immediately. We have full resources devoted to this investigation, including tactical, operational, investigative, and intelligence. To be clear, the FBI will fully support and co-lead this investigation alongside with our partners. We are working on setting up a digital media tip line, and as soon as it's established, we'll get that information out to everyone. I know there's a lot of questions. This is very much an active case, and this investigation is in its early stages. We are following all the leads and all the evidence. If anyone has any information, please report it to the FBI or local law enforcement. Thank you.
On behalf of President Jimenez, who we've been communicating with, and she's on her way back right now, I say that on behalf of Utah Valley University, we are shocked and saddened by the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk. We express our sincere condolences to the Kirk family. We grieve with our students, faculty, and staff who bore witness to this unspeakable tragedy. He was invited by the student group Turning Point USA campus. We firmly believe that UVU is a place to share ideas and to debate openly and respectfully. Any attempt to infringe on those rights has no place here. We do not condone any form of violence at UVU and seek to make our campus a safe place for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this dark and tragic occasion. I want to thank our law enforcement officers who are leading this investigation, starting with Chief Long and his response here with the UVU Police Department. We're grateful for your leadership and your team. And again, to the speakers that you've just heard from who are co-leading this investigation. I also want to recognize Sheriff, who has been an invaluable partner as this investigation moves forward. I've been in touch with President Trump, with FBI Director Kash Patel. We are completely aligned with our state and federal partners as we work through this case. Now, this is a dark day for our state. It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is political assassination. We are celebrating 250 years of the founding of this great nation. That founding document, the Declaration of Independence, that this great experiment on which we embarked together 250 years ago, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. The first one of those is life. And today, a life was taken. Charlie Kirk was first and foremost a husband and a dad to two young children.
EVE Online is a vast...
He was also very much politically involved, and that's why he was here on campus. Charlie believed in the power of free speech and debate to shape ideas and to persuade people. Historically, our university campuses in this nation and here in the state of Utah have been the place where truth and ideas are formulated and debated. And that's what he does. He comes on college campuses and he debates. That is foundational to the formation of our country, to our most basic constitutional rights. And when someone takes the life of a person because of their ideas or their ideals, then that very constitutional foundation is threatened. Now, we have a person of interest in custody. The investigation is ongoing. But I want to make it crystal clear right now to whoever did this, we will find you. We will try you accountable to the furthest extent of the law. And I just want to remind people that we still have the death penalty here in the state of Utah. Our nation is broken. We've had political assassinations recently in Minnesota. We had an attempted assassination on the governor of Pennsylvania. And we had an attempted assassination on a presidential candidate and former president of the United States, and now current president of the United States. Nothing I say can unite us as a country. Nothing I can say right now can fix what is broken. Nothing I can say can bring back Charlie Kirk. Our hearts are broken. We mourn with his wife, his children, his family, his friends. We mourn as a nation. If anyone in the sound of my voice celebrated even a little bit at the news of this shooting, I would beg you to look in and to see if you can find a better angel in there somewhere. I don't care what his politics are. I care that he was an American. We desperately need our country. We desperately need leaders in our country. But more than the leaders, we just need every single person in this country to think about where we are and where we want to be. To ask ourselves, is this it? Is this what 250 years has wrought on us? I pray that that's not the case. I pray that those who hated what Charlie Kirk stood for will put down their social media and their pens and pray for his family, and that all of us will try to find a way to stop hating our fellow Americans. With that, we're happy to take a few questions.
The FBI director is posting that a suspect is in custody. I would just like clarification. Do you or do you not have a suspected shooter in custody?
We have a person of interest in custody that is being interviewed right now. We do.
That is not George Zinn.
That is not George. That is correct.
Is there any
still
indication
searching
for an
or
involvement?
looking for another shooter or anybody else related to this?
Yes, we are actively looking for anyone and everyone who has any possible information relating to the shooting.
Can you tell us details about the suspect being taken into custody? Where, how long ago?
We cannot at this point, but we will get you that information when we can.
Is there believed to be a second individual involved in the shooting?
At this point, there is no information that would lead us to believe that there is a second person involved.
Can you guys talk about the possible shooter?
Do you want to talk about what we know there? Yeah.
The only information we have on the suspect, the possible shooter, is taken from closed circuit TV here on campus. We do have that. We're analyzing it, but it is security camera footage, so you can kind of guess what. Dressed in all dark clothing, but we don't have a much better description other than that.
Where did the shot came from?
The shot came from here on campus, from a location at a third, potentially from a roof. Yes, a longer distance shot from a roof.
So to clarify, with the security camera footage you have and the person of interest that's in custody, does that match up?
That's what we're trying to decipher right now.
So did FBI or DHS have anything on the threat board this morning?
Your workflow is important to us. Please wait indefinitely.
With Monday.com's intuitive work management platform, you have the power. Not IT, not admins. You're in charge. So you can tailor.
I can't speak.
I'll just say that the investigation is ongoing, and as soon as we have further information, we will be sure to release it.
Any indications of foreign intelligence involvement?
As of now, I can't comment on any of that.
Thank you. Can you talk a little about the security of the event itself? Who was there security-wise and what happens on these kind of events?
So my name is Jeff Long. I'm the police chief here at UVU, and I'll tell you right now, we are devastated. We're a small police department. We have a very large campus. We have over 40,000 students, and we love our students. We love our visitors, and we're devastated by what happened today. This is the police chief's nightmare. I'm very saddened for the Kirk family. I know his wife and parents found out about this. Obviously he's away from home. He's here in Utah. They find out by a police officer that visits their home. That's tragic. Nobody wants that. But I can tell you about our venue today. This was an open venue. This was outside. We did have 6 officers working that event. We had probably over 3,000 people that were in attendance. It sat down in kind of a bowl area here on the central campus. We have a waterfall area. And so he was kind of in a lower area surrounded by buildings. We had some plainclothes police officers that were in the crowd as well. We train for these things, and you think you have things covered, and these things, unfortunately, they happen. You try to get your bases covered, and unfortunately today we didn't. And because of that, we had this tragic incident. So we did have officers there. We had Charlie Kirk's team. He has a security team that travels with him, and they were here with him when he was shot.
Was the gun covered?
I'm sorry, see?
Was the weapon recovered?
At this point, I can't disclose that.
When Charlie Kirk was shot, there was a question being asked about mass shootings. Was that person apprehended? And do you know who asked that question?
Say the question again. I don't know if I understand what you're saying.
When Charlie Kirk was shot, he was answering a question about mass shootings specifically. Was that person apprehended? And do you know who asked that question?
I do not. We do not have that at this moment.
What kind of weapon was used?
Ladies and gentlemen, we have time for just one more question, so thank you.
Yeah, a question for the chief as well. Was it your team or Kirk's team or a combination of both that kind of set the security protocol for the event?
So we work together. You know, he has his team and they do this all over the country. We all know that. This is not uncommon for them. They're very comfortable on campuses. And I was coordinating with his lead security guy. And so, yeah, we were working together.
Was this a sharpshooter type shot? Was this?
Ladies and gentlemen, those are all the questions that will be answered today. Again, thank you for covering this. We will be updating you as soon as we have additional information through normal channels, working with law enforcement. Again, our deepest condolences to the Kirk family and to the students who were there today. I would just ask everyone everywhere to please pray for their family and to pray for our country. We need it now more than ever. Thank you.
trying to change the Constitution. He provided an opportunity for those that opposed his views a safe and open platform to debate him. And he didn't do it with condescending voices. He didn't do that with hatred in his voice, regardless of what Matthew Dowd said, by saying that hateful thoughts lead to hateful words that lead to hateful actions. Give me something, Matthew Dowd. Tell me what Charlie Kirk said that was ever hateful, other than the fact he stood up for Christian values, traditional values, and he believed in the Constitution and what our founding fathers believed this great country could become. And because of that, people felt threatened. I mean, the crazy left that accuses us of making them feel unsafe, those are the same people that are out assassinating people that disagree with them and shooting up schools and churches. I'm so frustrated with what's happening right now, that happened to Charlie. And now he has his wife is a widow, and his two young kids are going to have videos of Charlie, but they're not going to have their dad at home. They robbed a voice that spoke common sense because of their hatred to people that disagree with them, but yet they're the ones that try to champion free speech. But we're not the ones out there trying to silence them through violence. It's ridiculous. And I know, Sean, that I'm not the only one out there hurting, and I'm not the only one that's upset by this. But when is enough enough? When is the Democrats going to stand up and apologize for the hatred and the lies that they have fed their base that's led to these actions?
Yeah. By the way, there are reports that that one commentator that we played, Matthew Dowd on MSDNC, his comments about Charlie Kirk might have resulted in his firing. I know many have called for it. It just is, if that's where your mind goes, it shows how ugly and twisted and sick you have really become. Senator Mark Waymon, we appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us tonight. We have just received an update from the Utah Department of Public Safety. They say that neither person that was arrested today ended up having any connection to Charlie Kirk's murder. Authorities now, they believe this was a targeted attack. The shot was fired from the roof. They are investigating multiple crime scenes at this hour. Joining us now, our second hour of coverage tonight, two Fox News contributors, former law enforcement officials, Nicole Parker, Paul Morrow. Nicole, what do you make of the new information? And unless you're a president and have Secret Service protection, you're not going to be able to stop somebody with a high-powered rifle on a roof from 200 yards. It's impossible.
Sean, you're exactly right. And that's exactly the thought that I had. And unfortunately, Charlie Kirk does not have Secret Service protection. There are only certain individuals that do. And we cannot live in a world where you can only walk about freely and have debate if you're someone that has Secret Service protection. I understand people are complaining there are only 6 security guards and this and that at Utah Valley University. Sean, this person probably would not have been able to be stopped. Obviously, they're going to do a full deep dive on what occurred. But I hate to say this. And having worked in the FBI, worked violent crime, Sean, I was a witness to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Tomorrow, we mark 24 years. That is why I actually went on to join the FBI, was to save individuals from violence in our country, from terrorism. Nowhere is safe. And Sean, this is kind of eerie, and I'm going to share this on national television. On August 29th, 10 days ago, I have family members in Utah, like we discussed, and we had a group family text message. And I had a brother who was talking about how they had no metal detectors at their high school football. This is Utah. This is Utah County. We don't need that. I immediately responded, Sean, it's almost eerie. And I said, if you think that you're safe just because you're in Utah, basically, that is extremely naive. Nowhere is safe. They had a shooting in Provo during the BLM protests back in the summer of 2020. They had recently had a shooting in Salt Lake City due to the riots just a couple months ago. And then there was also an officer that was shot and killed in the line of duty in Utah. Nowhere is safe, but we cannot live in fear. And you know what, Sean? I'm not trying to get philosophical on everybody, but it's impossible not to on a day like this. This is tragic. The one thing I learned on 9/11, you never know when it could be your last day. You don't know. Are you prepared to meet your maker? That is my one question I would like to believe with every American. Do not live in fear. Do not let these evil people win. This is a battle between good and evil. I hate to say it. All the law enforcement in the world, all of the video surveillance and all of these detection systems, They're not going to stop evil. This is the world that we are now in. But the key is we will not let evil win, just like we didn't on 9/11. Are you prepared to meet your maker? I have no doubt that Charlie Kirk is in paradise and is shining down with looking down on his family and loved ones right now. I do not wish death upon anyone, but we cannot live in fear, and he did not live in fear. Right now, there is someone watching your program or any other news program, I guarantee it, that knows this killer. If you have any information, please call 800-CALL-FBI. 800-CALL-FBI. I know that they also have an additional tip line that has been set up. I don't have the information for that to put up on the screen right now. But if you have any information about this killer, you need to report it now. Utah is a difficult place. It is mountainous. It is tough terrain. That person could have gone into the mountains. They could be long gone. If you know this individual, you think you may know this individual, you report it to law enforcement.
Kaylee said it earlier. He was a man of faith. God was very important to Charlie, and I do believe that he is in paradise this day, and he welcome home good and faithful servant. One of my favorite scriptures is, the eye hath not seen, nor has the ear heard, nor has it entered into the hearts of man what God has in store for those that love the truth, those people that believe. Paul Morrow, where are we with the investigation?
Well, right now, as we know, there have been 3 people interviewed and subsequently released. One of them remains in custody just on an obstruction charge. But one of the things I would caution against is reading too much into those fact patterns. Any investigation has a lot of up and downs. And I'm going to refer to the Koberger case. If you recall, everybody said, oh, the first 48 hours are over, and so the case has gone cold. This case is far from cold. That's not how these things work anymore. The first 48 hours, excuse me for this, I'm outside the Ryan Ruth courthouse here in Florida, which is what I was down here to cover. But first 48 hours, that's an old style detective thing that really doesn't bear anymore. You got all this digital evidence that you're going to have to go through. You're going to have to go through a ton of video. And Sean, I got to return to that. I have to return to the ingress and egress issue on this campus. How this guy was able to get on that roof, how he was not able to be tracked by video yet. I'm sure they're pulling at that. Remember the Luigi Mangione case in Manhattan? NYPD was able to track him from Midtown by leapfrogging the video, by block to the Upper West Side.
I hope they can.
Certainly that kind of thing is going on now.
I mean, and I brought this up in the last segment with Nicole. Entire way. There's got to be some indication. I do have faith in law enforcement, and our prayers are with them as they, go forward. We do appreciate both of more as we continue our coverage. Congressman James Comer and Congressman Ronnie Jackson, also a medical doctor. Ronnie, I'm sure that you looked at this video. I interviewed on my show a friend of mine that's a medical doctor. I said, I looked at this video and immediately it looked like the carotid been hit. It literally, shooting out blood at a level I've never seen before. I had eyewitnesses that were in the front that said, I asked, was there any medical attention immediately given? How long can you be in that condition without instant medical care and survive? Because I did not have a lot of hope when I saw that video. My heart sunk as low as it could go.
Yeah, Sean, I'll be honest. I was horrified just like you were when I saw that. And there's literally nothing that can be done in that situation. That was a fatal wound. And I don't care if there was a trauma surgeon at the end of the steps there on the stage. There's very little chance that anybody would have been able to do anything to save his life at that point. The way the blood was coming out, Sean, I immediately knew that he was not going to survive this. It's horrific. I mean, Charlie's a friend of mine. We all love him. And to see that was just, it was horrific. But the amount of blood that was coming from that wound, it was just, he was dead within 60 seconds, most likely. I mean, his heart didn't beat too many more times before that his body had out onto the stage there. It's absolutely horrific. And I'll tell you, Sean, I just want to say that, like, I saw one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen today. After this happened, we went to the floor and you played a little bit of it, and the video did not do justice to what happened on the floor, Sean. There was a call for prayer, and the Democrats yelled and booed, and I have never ever been so disgusted and disappointed with another human being than what I saw today on the floor. It is absolutely evil, and I know that I'm not going to characterize or generalize the entire Democrat Party. There's some good Democrats in that conference, but a lot of people in that conference, Sean, are evil people, and I just could not even hardly stomach what I saw today.
What was your reaction, Congressman Comer?
Well, look, we were in the House Oversight Committee, ironically having a markup on D.C. crime. We worked with the White House to pass the president's new agenda to combat crime in Washington, D.C. when Marjorie Taylor Greene, a fellow Oversight Committee member, made the announcement that Charlie Kirk had been shot. And at that point, the mood in the room changed. And, you had a lot of Democrats that were really hostile for about 6 hours prior to that, arguing against any changes, trying to act like there's no crime in America. I think they realize that their base, a certain segment of their base, has been radicalized. Many of the last mass shootings, many of the last high-profile shootings done by radicalized liberals that are believing this garbage that the left-wing media is spewing and that many Democrat politicians are spewing about Donald Trump, about Republicans in Congress. And, there are consequences to their words. And I think that was sinking in with some of the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee at that moment. And I agree with what Congressman Jackson and Senator Mullen said. I was on the floor, and just seeing the Democrats outraged to having a moment of silence or the mention of the word prayer. You have members of Congress on the Democrat side that we know are anti-Semitic, but they're also anti-Christian, and they don't believe in prayer. And that's their right to believe in that. That's not what the country was founded on. And in a moment of crisis, we have to come together with prayer. And I'm glad that Mike Johnson led us in a moment of silence on the House floor.
Yeah, well, the same people, their closing argument in the 24 race was Trump is a Nazi and a racist, and he's Hitler and he's Stalin and he's Mussolini. Congressman Comer, a lot of your work in oversight has to do with investigations. Every indication is we are looking tonight at a political assassination, one that there was a plot, there was a plan, there was a scheme, this was premeditated, and I would be any evidence to corroborate that, but it has all the markings of a planned assassination. I'm hoping law enforcement can get to the bottom of it quickly. We're not getting any word that they have a person of interest, although I was told earlier tonight that they thought they had a person of interest. What are your thoughts on the fact that this was, planned out with this level? And it was, if you look at the shot from 200 yards away, this is a trained marksman or somebody that practiced a lot or a trained assassin that did this. Hopefully we get to the bottom of that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that strikes out to me. You've got a shot fired from 200 yards. That's 2 football fields away. That with pinpoint accuracy. This was someone who had been trained, had a very accurate, very high-powered rifle. This didn't just this wasn't in any similarity like what we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania. I believe we need to give law enforcement some time to chase some leads, and next week We're going to have Kash Patel in Congress. He's going to be testifying in the House Judiciary Committee, and I'm sure he's going to have a lot of questions, and hopefully by then we'll have more answers.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Ronnie Jackson? Looks like a planned assassination to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying, Sean. This guy's still on the loose out there, right? And I know Kash and, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and people like that are doing their best to find this guy. But a lot of people are worried right now. As Chairman Comer just mentioned, this guy's a pretty good shot, and he was motivated, and God knows how inspired he is now. And who's he gonna take on next? And and the left has done this over and over. They called Charlie this all the time. And there was a video clip I pulled up earlier I was looking at where I was talking to Charlie, and we were talking about how we'd been labeled as Nazis and things of this nature. And it's that kind of rhetoric that inspires these crazy people to go out and do this kind of stuff. So I think there are a lot of people right now on the right now that are worried about some of these nut jobs that are out there that have been inspired by the far left to do stuff like this. And we have to find these people. We have to come up with some kind of solution to stop this, because this is just crazy. Charlie, if anybody ever deserved, to live their life to the fullest, it's Charlie Kirk. I mean, this man has never done anything to anybody. He inspires hundreds of thousands of people to live a better life than they lived the day before. And it's unthinkable what happened. And I know they're going to find this guy, and I hope they do it really, really soon, Sean.
I believe they'll find him too. I trust in law enforcement. All right, Congressman Comer, Congressman Ronnie Jackson, thank you both. Here with reaction to today's horrific assassination. Fox News contributors Joe Concha, Guy Benson, Project 21 Chairman Horace Cooper. Joe, let's get your reaction. Your expertise is in the media arena. We played earlier MSDNC, some of the headlines, some of the commentary leading up to the event. Right-wing extremist. He was not an extremist. If you support Donald Trump, that does not, by definition, make you an extremist.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think many conservative young adults, Sean, will remember this day and know exactly where they were when they heard that Charlie was shot and or killed. Know this, Charlie Kirk will go down as one of the great patriots of the 21st century and perhaps of all time in this country. When you think about what he decided to do at age 18, Sean, to start this movement of Turning Point USA, literally from scratch. And this wasn't somebody who shouted people down, to your point, or believed in censorship. He would engage in debates with those who disagree with him in these great, they're called Prove Me Wrong debates. You could go on social media if you want to watch them sometime because they're great. But more and more, it seems there are people in this country who have no interest in debate. But in silencing those they disagree with through censorship, violence, and in this case, death. We've seen too many Democrats say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. In the words of Representative Dan Goldman of New York, a man who should be, quote, eliminated. Or James Comey, a former FBI director, spelling out 8647 in the sand, putting it up on social media, which clearly implies to take out the 47th president. Or President Biden saying 4 days before Donald Trump was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, that Trump, quote, needed to be put in a bullseye. So, look, the bottom line is that when the Matthew Dowds of the world on MSNBC, who is a profoundly horrible human being, actually blaming Charlie Kirk after he's dead, the same way that Matthew Dowd blamed Donald Trump after his assassination attempts for, in Dowd's mind, bringing it on themselves, therefore they deserved it, or saying that a Trump supporter was maybe celebrating in the moment and accidentally shot Charlie because he was celebrating at this thing. I'm sorry. This is utterly delusional. And Matthew Dowd, there are reports now that he has been fired. He won't be back on the air. He shouldn't be back on television in general. Good. That's a good first start. But there's too much rhetoric right now that we're seeing from the left that is leading to these situations like we saw with Ryan Ruth, who literally was outside of the sixth hole of Trump International in Palm Beach and literally had a manifest that said, Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and I need to take him out. Words have consequences here. I'm sorry.
Guy, let's get your thoughts.
Well, I mean, it's sickening. It's still difficult to process. It's almost unimaginable that we're talking about Charlie Kirk in the past tense. He was this dynamic, almost larger-than-life figure in a lot of ways, a very charismatic guy who built a movement from the ground up. I mean, Joe was just mentioning Charlie back when he was 18 years old. I met Charlie years before that when he was a teenager living in Illinois, starting this little tiny organization. And you see what he's been able to create out of that and the legacy that he leaves behind in terms of politics, in terms of his professional life. He asked my advice. I mentioned this to Brett Baer, our colleague earlier, Sean. He asked my advice back when I was in my early 20s and he was in his teens about going to college. Was it worth it? Should he pursue a degree? And I gave him kind of traditional advice. I think you should go get that degree. You can get involved in this stuff when you graduate. And he was very respectful and polite about it. But luckily for everyone, he completely ignored my advice because he was cut out for something different, something more, something bigger. And that's precisely what he spent his entire adult life building. And I know that movement will go on. It will outlive him. I think it will be energized. It will be galvanized because of what happened, this act of unspeakable evil today. But Sean, what I can't get out of my head today is that video we've been playing on our air, that just impossibly heartbreaking video of Charlie's little daughter at Fox and Friends when he was hosting one morning, coming into the studio to hug him. That little girl doesn't have a dad now. And same applies to her little brother and Charlie's wife, Erica. It's going to take a long time to pick up these pieces, and it's just gut-wrenching.
Horace?
This changes everything. COVID cost a lot of lives, cost a lot of money, but in a few years, America was back to America. What this feels like is like September 11th. We changed after that horrific event. I regret that as a 30-something that I didn't join the military to fight for my country and to seek the justice that was deserved. But I tell you here and now, I will not back down. Free speech is worth it. Charlie Kirk's life is worth it. We all must agree to join the effort to stand up. The norms that the left have violated, they compound and they compound. And here is where we are. We're not going to be able to go to football games and have simple things. We're not going to be able to. A lot of change is going to occur because of this evil act.
Well said, Horace Cooper. I appreciate all of you. Joe, Guy, Horace, thank you. We're going to end this hour. Utah Senator, our friend Mike Lee is with us. Senator, I know this is devastating for the people of Utah, the good people of Utah.
It's absolutely devastating. And as a longtime friend of Charlie Kirk's, someone who's known him for a long time, I'm devastated. But, I'm also inspired by the example of this good friend, a friend of mine, a friend to the United States and so many. Charlie Kirk, as a follower of Jesus Christ, understood that the truth would set us free, and he dedicated his life to that principle. It showed up in every aspect of his life, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a patriot. He fought like a founder. He really understood the American dream. He understood that what young people need most right now in this world in which woke universities leave our youth bereft of hope, he offered them a vision of America as a shining city on a hill that once it rejoined its destiny, it rejoined its mission through the Judeo-Christian belief system and with a firm commitment to the U.S. Constitution, that we would yet again be unstoppable and restore hope to this great country. Charlie Kirk has been taken from us too young, too early, and yet his legacy will live on. He will, in many respects, be even larger in death than he was in life, which is a hard feat to accomplish. I will miss him, and so will America, but we will never be the same as a result of his service. So I'm calling on all within the sound of my voice, those who love Charlie and loved his message. Let's replicate him. We can't clone him. We can't bring him back from the dead, but we can replicate him by doing as Charlie would do and maintaining that happy warrior stance in every climb of America. We can restore the greatness that is our birthright.
Do you know, Senator, I only have 30 seconds left. Do you know if the university had security cameras? I would assume they did.
Yes, the university has security cameras. I haven't seen the footage. I've been in touch. I've spoken to President Trump this evening. I've spoken to Kash Patel several times this evening. They're reviewing everything. They've got leads. They're guardedly optimistic that we're going to get to the bottom of this. We'll find the monster. And my heart goes out to the brave men and women, the police in Utah, the FBI, and others who are helping
find them,
them.
Senator.
I wish them the very best of luck, and I'm confident they will bring this person to justice.
Senator, thank you for your time. Our prayers are with the people of Utah and Charlie Kirk's family. That is all the time we have left tonight. Please stay with the Fox News channel for continuing coverage of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Trace Gallagher will take it from here. Godspeed, Charlie. Good and faithful servant.
Good evening. I'm Trace Gallagher. It's 11 p.m. on the East Coast, 8 o'clock here in Los Angeles, and this is a special edition of America's Late News, Fox News at Night. And breaking tonight, new answers in a day of tragedy as authorities continue searching for the shooter who assassinated Charlie Kirk. So far, law enforcement authorities have detained 2 people. One is now completely cleared, and another person of interest has now been released, as President Trump now vowing to bring the suspect to justice.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
The popular conservative activist was shot and killed at a Turning Point USA event on the campus of Utah Valley University, leaving millions shocked and saddened by the senseless violence.
If anyone in the sound of my voice celebrated even a little bit at the news of this shooting, I would beg you to look in the mirror.
We will also look in the mirror and take a closer look into the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk, dead at the age of 31. Christina Coleman is live with new information on today's tragedy and the search for the suspect. Christina, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Trace. Yes, the search is underway for the killer. FBI Director Kash Patel said a subject was in custody but has since been released after an interrogation by law enforcement. Kirk was about 20 minutes into a speech as part of Turning Point USA's The American Comeback Tour on the campus of Utah Valley University. He was taking questions when a single gunshot rang out, striking Kirk in the neck.
This is a dark day for our state. It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
The shooting happened around 12:20 local time, sending this large crowd into a panic. There was around 3,000 people in attendance at the time and a handful of officers.
We did have 6 officers working that event. We had probably over 3,000 people that were in attendance. We had some plainclothes police officers that were in the crowd as well. We did have officers there. We had Charlie Kirk's team. He has a security team that travels with him, and they were here with him when he was shot.
Kirk was speaking under a tent at the time of the shooting. Authorities say the gunman fired the shot from a distance on campus. After he was shot, Kirk lifted his right arm and fell backwards as blood gushed from his neck. Authorities say the shooter is believed to have fired that gunshot from the roof of a building into the student courtyard. Take a listen to police dispatch relaying the suspect's possible description.
Going to be wearing all black, black long gun, black tactical helmet, a black mask, possibly wearing a tactical vest and jeans.
All of this just so horrible. Again, Kirk was just 31 years old and leaves behind a wife and 2 young children. Trace.
Christina, thank you. Let's bring in the author of Domestic Extremist, Peachy Keenan, Israeli Special Ops veteran Aaron Cohen, former Trump Deputy Communications Director Caroline Sunshine, attorney Katie Zachariah, the Chabad of Bel Air's Rabbi Chaim Mentz, retired FBI Special Agent Maureen O'Connell, 17-year-old activist, writer, and author Lucky Becerri, North Carolina Congressman Mark Harris, Cavalry Chapter Chino Hills Pastor Jack Hibbs, Fox News contributor Nicole Parker, Fox News political analyst Gianno Caldwell, political commentator Brylan Hollyhand, and California gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton. Thank you all for coming off. We want to start on the actual search for the suspects and so on and so forth. Former FBI agent Stuart Kaplan said earlier tonight on Fox News that he thinks this about the assassination. Listen to him. It's call for one.
This assassination of Charlie Kirk, to me,
is indicative of a professional hit. And I'm not so sure that we are going to quickly be able to apprehend this individual without some luck. This seems the earmark of a professional that got up onto this rooftop well in advance of the venue being occupied by the spectators.
Yeah. Nicole Parker, to you first, what do you think? I mean, using the word professional hit is a pretty bold statement. What do you think about that, and what do you think happened here?
I have to say that based on what I can see, I agree with the former retired FBI agent Stuart Kaplan. I mean, it was a sharp shot. Okay, one round to the throat. And again, remember, this was elevated. It appeared that they were probably about 2 stories up. It wasn't just a one level. It was probably 2 stories. And Charlie Kirk was underneath a tent. One round, and then it went silent. And they mission accomplished for this nasty, evil, despicable monster that took Charlie Kirk's life away. But what I can tell you is that law enforcement is piecing together every single shred of evidence that they have. But there was something that they said in the press conference to me that's indicative of the video surveillance. I'm not sure that the video surveillance at Utah Valley University is high quality. I kind of gathered that based on what they said in the press conference. But what they would do is obviously piece together the video surveillance from the roof and backtrack the shooter's steps all the way back to, did they come from a vehicle? Were they dropped off? Things of that nature. But this is going to be a difficult case to solve. We need to put our prayers out there for law enforcement right now, because this is an all hands on deck situation. I have many friends in the FBI. I know that they immediately, the ones out of FBI Salt Lake, said, we are going to be working day and night, and we are not going to stop until this person's in custody. Definitely all hands on deck. Maureen O'Connell, would you add something to what Nicole was just saying there?
Yeah, I agree with what she said about all hands on deck. And I actually have a colleague of mine that called and she said someone who worked closely with Charlie Kirk was also received a death threat today. I put that person in touch with the FBI, and the FBI was all over it within a matter of moments. So she's right. The cyber teams and everything, you know, FBI, if you have something or you see something, you have to let them know. Go to FBI.gov, submit a tip or a lead. You may not have the entire, every piece to this puzzle, but your one piece may be the one that, to Stuart's point, might be the good luck piece that we need to catch this monster.
Yeah. Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor, was also there at the very time this shot was fired. It's call for two, Katie. But Jason said this on the Ingram angle earlier, and I thought it was fascinating. Watch.
What was security like, to the extent there was security, getting into the area where he was speaking?
0 to none. Right above where Charlie was speaking, there was an awning, and people had gathered above that, and they pushed him off to the side. There were a couple of people in police, wearing, uniformed police. Charlie has his own detail, but look, you got 3,000 people, and there's a couple of people with Charlie's personal security detail. But again, we're talking a handful of 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, but nobody knows security better than you do, Aaron Cohen. And I just wonder, if you look at this scene right here, I mean, what do you make of all of this? You've got no security, almost no security, and what appears to be maybe somebody who's either well-planned or being paid to do this.
So here's where I'm at with this, Trace. I don't know if this was a professional hit. I can tell you that the shooter was proficient. We'll find out more in the investigation. What I can tell you is that the security for this event is not multi-layered. It's soft. There were no bag checks. Thousands of people in that crowd. The fact that somebody can get in there with a weapon and get on top of a roof tells me everything I need to know, which is that Charlie did not have the insulation that was required. His immediate protective detail, which I'm sure these are very professional guys. I saw the footage of them jumping on him within seconds after the shot, trying to cotter that thing, getting him into that vehicle. All very, very professional. But the fact is that you can get into a Charlie Kirk event tells me this. We are now in a radicalization war. I frame this as domestic terror. This is the new face of terrorism in America. They killed Charlie Kirk because of what he says, what he stands for, and what he believes. And the radicalization pipeline is happening online, and it's getting fed into everybody's cell phone. And any one of those kids could have taken a shot at that kid. It didn't have to be from 75 or 200 yards or whatever the distance was.
Yep.
So my contention now is we have to wait for this thing to unfold. I think the FBI is going to tear this thing apart. Law enforcement is going to try and hunt this guy down within hours. And we'll know more at that point. But I will not be surprised, Trace, if there is a very extensive digital breadcrumb with this shooter, and we're going to find out.
Yeah, we had a witness there, and you saw the pictures on the thing. You saw kind of the chaos as these people heard the shot, and they kind of scrambled. Nicole Parker, I want to go back to you, but I want to play this sound from a witness who was there and actually kind of told us about what was happening on the ground when the shots were fired.
I was right there up at the barricade. And I was like 15, maybe 10 feet away from Charlie. And I remember the debater who was debating asked him about transgender gun violence or something. And then, and that's when I was reporting it. And then I heard the loud bang, which I can only imagine was a gunshot because everyone immediately dropped to the floor. And then it was just chaos.
Chaos. He ends by saying chaos, Nicole Parker, because really the shooter has to depend on the chaos to be able to get away, right? Partly?
Absolutely. And that's commonly seen. I mean, I saw that in the Parkland school shooting. The shooter, there was total chaos, and the shooter actually ran out with everybody else after that awful travesty in Parkland, Florida. So that is something that they strategically could have very well planned. Obviously in dark clothing, again, not making speculation about what may have occurred, but what we see in crimes many times is that they're completely covered, masked. They've got the gloves on so that there's no way to track any DNA on a weapon, on a round that they may have put. But then as soon as they're done committing the crime, they shed the clothing and then they can just be out free, right? The key is, where is the weapon? Where is the weapon? Did they leave the weapon behind? It's very difficult to just run around with a rifle or a rifle bag, right? But again, thousands of people scurrying everywhere. For them to blend into that crowd would be easy, but again, they had to come off of the roof. So these are all very important technicalities that law enforcement will be looking at. But I agree with Aaron, and I've said it earlier in this program or earlier this evening, digital footprint is crucial, and understanding what the threats were against Charlie Kirk at that time. His own personal security, I guarantee you the FBI and law enforcement is talking to them right now and saying, what known threats did Charlie have against him? And they are delving into those very, very deeply right now.
Yeah, Maureen O'Connell's over here kind of nodding her head. To add to this, what do you want to say, Maureen?
Well, if he had a collapsible stock on his weapon, then he could have just put it into a backpack. And with regard to the all-black outfit that he was supposedly wearing when he shot, in that backpack, he could have had something just like a white little light jacket to throw over, something to really throw people off. To see a person, he could have exited with the crowd, is my point. He could have blended right in and taken his time. He didn't have to run, all the way. But so there's this investigation is at the beginning. There is so much work to do. And I'm sure that you can agree with me on this, that every time I go to these schools with their camera systems, not every time, but the majority, there's such terrible cameras that I couldn't tell you two apart on the cameras.
Part of your whole gig, Aaron Cohen, is to profile people, to make sure that you know what's going on here. Could this guy be profiled? What's the next step for investigators looking at this?
Well, so there's very good technical tools that have fallen into local law enforcement's lap. There's flock systems for cameras which allow license plates to be read. I'm sure that the Provo Police Department, who I recently spoke to about Gideon not long ago, Trace, we kicked him out an alert. I guaranteed them, and I actually made contact with them quietly to let them know that we were going to be ramping up the system for any additional attacks or copycat attacks out there, and shot that out to 20 more agencies who are on the pilot. So there's a flock system which allows those cameras are essentially placed around counties and around cities. They can read license plates. They don't monitor people's name and personal information like all the conspiracy. They literally will get you a license plate. So if this individual jumped into a car, which he likely did, that'll get dropped into the investigation once they get a make on that, if possible. They can then start pinging cell phone towers to try and track down cell phones. That'll get thrown into the mix as they start closing in on the investigation. But really, I think the biggest concern now is hunting down this shooter. Could it be a collapsed AR? Could have other pistols and weapons. It could have been, who knows? Getting this guy in handcuffs and arrested. Everything else will fall into place afterwards. But there's an active threat out there, and he needs to be cuffed immediately.
Aaron, Maureen, stand by if you would. I want to play some sound from President Trump, who said this about Charlie Kirk today.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America.
Caroline Sunshine, you and I have talked about this a lot of times during this, that he really did push young people to the polls. That was part of the appeal, right? And Joe Rogan and people like Charlie Kirk were kind of key in making sure that young people got out there to vote. And that was a big part of this. And it was politically influential to the max.
Yes, into the country. And I think something I was really touched to see today on my social media feeds was something I wasn't expecting, was to see the number of posts of young people that got their first job in politics because of Charlie. I think all of us who have served our country and who have been proud to be part of this movement recognize our first job, our first internship it's an important part in your career. It's an important part. It changes your life, really. And I think of the legacy that Charlie has left behind in seeing how many people that I didn't realize I had served alongside, that their first job or their first internship came from Charlie, that these were people who were looking for an avenue in to serve our country, and Charlie was the one that gave it to them. And, you know, I know we all watching tonight and here understand how finite life is, and there's a lot that you can't take with you. You don't get to take your money and your things and your titles into the life after this one, but what you leave behind is your legacy. And I look at the legacy that Charlie has left of all those lives that he changed, and there's no better legacy to leave than that one.
And remarkable in 31 years to leave that kind of legacy. I mean, it really is. I want to bring in Lucky Basseri because this is somebody who really was, for all intents and purposes, a follower of Charlie Kirk. And Lucky, I just want you to give me your thoughts. You had Caroline kind of talk to us about the fact that young people gravitated toward President Trump because of Charlie Kirk, because of some other people. But you know, this was a movement in itself, Lucky.
Right. Upon this news breaking today at my school, I mean, that was and the talk of the day. Everyone was talking about it at lunch and afterward and beforehand, because everyone knew Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk was really the first conservative to break into the mainstream of the youth, of Gen Z. And he was truly a trailblazer in all of that. He truly trailblazed a path for myself and millions of other young conservatives out there who he inspired in dramatic ways, and he really built a roadmap for other conservatives to reach out to the young and to get to them and to get them to be conservative. He made it cool to be conservative, but you know, to me, he was always indomitable. He always felt indomitable, and so you know, every kid has a favorite superhero. Charlie Kirk was mine, and so to see what happened to him was just shocking and horrifying. And you know, I now feel compelled to say we have to work to honor his legacy. We all, young conservatives and conservatives in general, have to complete his mission of saving the youth.
When you hear Peachy Keenan, some young person like that say he made it cool to be a conservative, I mean, it really is a statement there because it's for a lot of years not been cool to be a conservative.
Right. I mean, young conservative college age guys are basically enemy number one in this country on the left. They think they're racist, they're bigots, and he made it okay to vote for Donald Trump, to wear a MAGA hat, to be pro-life, to be a Christian. He was an incredible role model. I have two college-age sons. They were devastated today. Actually, I've been on his show a few times, and the last time I was on, he wanted to talk to my son, who had been a witness to the fires in Altadena. So he got to go and meet Charlie Kirk, virtually on his show. And he was a hero. And he, people give these young guys a lot of flack for some of their role models who are, let's say, like less than savory. Charlie was basically unimpeachable. He was sort of like this perfect guy. He was just a magnificent guy all around. I met him in real life. And he made it okay to vote for Donald Trump, to be a conservative, to believe in what you believe. And that was okay. You were not a bigot. You were not a racist.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what happens to all these boys now. Like, who's going to kind of take the reins and lead them? It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, who's the new shepherd? Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, had something interesting to say. Here it is. It's call for number 5, Katie.
I'm very angry that you had a guy that dedicated his life to taking the ideas that we all believe in and bringing them to inhospitable environments, the college campus. You know, people talked about him running for office. He could have gotten elected to some red legislative district. He wouldn't have had nearly the impact. He chose to go in the places where he knew he was going to get pushback.
I mean, it's one of those things, Katie Zachariah, where you believe, you know what, the truth is that Charlie Kirk could have run for president in 8 years, in 14 years. So this is not just killing a conservative activist. This is changing history. Right? I mean, this is for all intents and purposes, whoever did this is changing the course of history.
Absolutely. What the left did is they went after academic institutions and they saw that they could target the youth. Charlie literally, with Turning Point, was the turning point for the youth. They realized that they could go after the youth. And Charlie said, I'm going to take this back. We are going to reclaim the youth of America and they are going to learn to love their country. I'm going to go into the dangerous places and I'm going to go engage on the intellectual battlefield. And I'm going to go to war with the ideas that are tearing apart our nation. And so Charlie deserves the biggest accolades. And it is incumbent upon all of us to continue his legacy of loving America, inspiring the youth, and teaching people that it is okay to stand up for your beliefs. It is okay to have families and celebrate kids and love your country. So he really is a monumental figure and will go down in history for what he's done.
He talks a lot about God. He talked a lot about country, and a lot of conservatives will come on and say, listen, the problem with the left is they don't like God, they don't like the country, and they don't like Trump. And that's kind of the thing, Rabbi, where, you know, that's kind of this theme. And he was also one to call it this anti-Semitism that we saw on these campuses across the country.
100%. We're missing one little point about him. He was a living example of what he preached. Politicians aren't that way. People who are in business aren't that way. He had no business. He wasn't asking for money. All he was is, I'm a religious man, and I want you to be the best that you could be. One of the things I loved about watching any time that he was on anywhere was, every time somebody disagreed with him, he smiled.
Yeah.
He gave you respect. He allowed you to speak. And at the end of the day, he just stared at you and said, okay, now what do you think? And that is what his power was. Young kids look at the politicians, get out of here. They're looking at all the people that are looking for TikTok to get more money and they do shtick. He was pure. He was a living example to look up to. And that's what a lot of people were scared of.
Yeah, and the rabbi talks about the conversation, the back and forth, and Charlie Kirk would always make it a fact to make sure that he would hear you out and he would come back and he hoped that you would hear him out. I want to bring Steve Hilton into the conversation now because Steve and Charlie Kirk were very close. He was a big fan of Steve Hilton's. And I want to play this soundbite before you react, Steve. This is Charlie Kirk talking with a woman. It's 48 seconds. It's kind of long, but it's worth every second of it because he's really going into the power of conversation and how violence can affect that. Watch.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults. The left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Hilton's a very good point because he put it all out there. It was on videotape. People, college students, including mine, would sit and watch these back and forth that he would have at these universities. And it was compelling, but it was also inflammatory. And some people did not like it. I don't think we have Steve's. We don't have audio. Steve, we'll stand by. We'll get back to you. Gianno Caldwell, just speaking of violence, nobody knows more about violence than Gianno Caldwell. That whole back and forth, Gianno, what did you think of that? And what do you think of this whole prospect that he knew very well that what he was doing had its risks?
Yeah, 100%. And I got to tell you, as the brother of a murder victim, my heart breaks for Erica and their children, Charlie's wife and their children, as well as their close friends and family. We're now all a part of a community that none of us wanted an invitation to, and that is the murder victims' families. And I got to tell you, I was with Charlie Kirk on his radio, on his podcast very recently, invited me to speak at Turning Point. And I remember what he was saying to me during that conversation, which when he was talking about my brother being murdered, he said, you know what, no matter who, gang members or not, these are all God's children. Those that commit harm, these are still God's children. And even despite knowing the evil that's out there, he still believed that there was good in people. And I think that's remarkable. He lived a remarkable life. And I got to tell you, you know, for conservatives everywhere, and I know there's a lot of folks, especially those who occupy spaces like we do, that have the fortune to be able to get on television and give our opinions and bring in crowds. We cannot allow what I believe to be the shooter to push fear into any of us, to stop us from delivering a message of God, conservatism, and what our country could and should be. He placed those values high, and I think we should also respect that as we continue to move forward and marshal what I believe to be a good message from God himself.
Yeah. Gianno, stand by if you would. We got some breaking news coming into Fox News at night. We're hearing moments ago that MSNBC has now fired a political analyst over back and forth as soon as Charlie Kirk got shot. Christina Coleman is back live with that. Christina.
That's right, Tracy. Yeah, we're hearing that this political contributor, Matthew Dode, got fired. And unfortunately, some on the left in the media, they've made some controversial comments following Charlie Kirk's political assassination. Take a listen.
After one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. You can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
We don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about this. But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech.
Yeah, so that comment got him in some pretty big trouble. MSNBC quickly addressed how inappropriate it was, writing, quote, during our breaking news coverage of the shooting of Charlie Kirk, Matthew Dode made comments that were inappropriate, insensitive, and unacceptable. We apologize for his statements, as has he. There is no place for violence in America, political or otherwise. And tonight, President Donald Trump also called out anyone making comments demonizing those who disagree with them politically.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible.
That's right. No room for that. And again, Fox Digital reporting that MSNBC has fired political analyst Matthew Dode over his inappropriate comments today, according to two sources familiar with the matter. Trace.
Christina, back to you as the news warrants. Thank you. Charlie Kirk clearly being remembered as a loving husband and father, as well as a political force. Let's bring back our panel very quickly. There's a lot of us who are trying to respond to this. I want to play this sound back. This is about free speech. This is on April 26th, and it is Call for 7, Katie.
Free speech is our birthright as Americans. When you have free speech, we're going to get closer to the truth, closer to the best way to govern, closer to the best polity for the country. And here in college campuses, they're not places of free speech. They are islands of totalitarianism. And these students are just begging to see a collision of ideas. They want to see what is a conservative versus a liberal.
Because, Caroline Sunshine, it's always been about robust debate. That's the whole mantra.
That's right. And I think what Charlie did I can't think of somebody on the left who has done the equivalent of what Charlie did. Charlie was willing to go to places that were maybe hostile to his beliefs, where there would clearly be a difference of opinion, and go and engage with candor and engage with respect. And it's hard for me to think of a figure on the left who was willing to go engage with conservatives in that same manner. And I think that's part of the problem in our country and why we continue to see this pattern of political violence. And I think it is incumbent upon the left. Follow Charlie's legacy. Go talk to people that don't see the world the same way that you do. Quit looking down your noses at them. Quit treating them with contempt. Follow Charlie's legacy of going and listening and having candid debate, because the fabric of our country depends on each of us looking at each other as our fellow American. And the problem I have with Dowd's comments today is it is so clear to me that he did not see Charlie Kirk as his fellow American. And that's the problem.
Yeah. And when you talk about robust debate and respect, Steve Hilton, we lost your microphone there a little bit earlier, but I mean, this is the whole thing. It's this discourse that makes this country what it is.
It is, and it's what made Charlie so successful. And you could see in everything he did, this beautiful soul, the joy with which he made his arguments. And I saw that as a friend for many, many years, nearly a decade now. Obviously, as a father and a husband, you've been talking about that. But the real thing is that he built something. I mean, I've seen this, phrase used to describe Charlie, conservative commentator. Of course, he did that. But he's a giant. I mean, what he built, I think of him as an American hero, the way he, in such an entrepreneurial way, built this amazing organization, Turning Point. He used to invite me along to some of his investor presentations, as it were, like shareholder meetings, where he would report on the organization to those who supported him and invested in him every single time. Just incredible growth. And in the different aspects of what Turning Point got involved in and how it was reaching. That's why they were so terrified of Charlie, because he was so effective. I think he's absolutely one of the greatest leaders we've ever seen in America. And I think that makes him one of the greatest leaders in the history of the world. We're going to be talking about and remembering Charlie for as long as we're talking about anything. And I think that we're all so, I mean, I find it's just an unbearable day. I cannot believe this has happened. I don't want to believe it's happened, but I know that he'll always actually be with me in one sense, inspiring me and so many millions of others to keep fighting the way that he did, with a smile on our face, with respect, but with strength all the time.
Yeah, the whole keep fighting phrase there is a good time to bring in Brylan Hollihan, because, you talk about keep fighting, and that was the president going into October and November. And, you get to that point, Brylan, and it was all about keep fighting. You had to keep fighting, and he needed you and other young people to keep fighting with him.
Absolutely. And the message to your audience tonight is really simple. The coward on that rooftop that assassinated my friend this afternoon wanted our generation to shut up. And if anything happened today, we woke up. And really, if anything comes from Charlie's assassination, it needs to be to make America talk again. Charlie's whole mantra was civil discourse. You've showed that at great length. He went campus to campus talking to people. He did this the right way. He went to the place where free expression and free conversations was supposed to be the matriarch. He went to a place where he actually allowed people that disagreed with him to come to the front of the line at all of his events. I mean, how do you explain to his two young children this afternoon that your dad just didn't come home because he went to a college campus, the sole place that you're supposed to be able to talk to each other, and just never came back? That's heartbreaking. I mean, he genuinely, now going forward into where Gen Z views him at this point, of not just a titan in media and in the Republican Party. I mean, he is a Christian conservative martyr. He was a walking, talking beacon of hope, and Gen Z cannot let his memory be in vain. We have to pick up that legacy. We have to use this as a moment of hope and frustration, and this anger that we're feeling right now has to be put into continuing on his movement, Trace.
Yeah, and Brylan talks about how he went campus to campus, and that was the whole thing, right? It was this sparring match, and you love, just like the football game, the Saturday football game, the students would gather, and they would say, some would walk away like, I won, and most would walk, he's got a good point. And here is 25 seconds of that exact thing we're talking about. It's call for 8.
You have to just give me a working definition of then what a woman is. What is a woman?
It is anyone who identifies as that way.
But
and it's okay, you guys don't feel that way. It's
time
okay.
out though, but that doesn't actually describe a woman. That's just saying that anyone can be a woman.
But do you need the definition of a woman to know what one is?
100%, of course you do. I don't. Isn't it just like a little bit silly you can't answer this fundamental biological question of what a woman is?
Peachy Keenan.
Yeah.